Good morning, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. So, last time we talked about the basic concepts of transmutational astrology, or the idea that um, we can change anything about ourselves, right? We're not fixed by the stars, and we can use the energy of our chart to kind of understand where we're currently at to better assist us move to where we want to be. So today we're going to be talking about transmuting solar energy, right? So the sun, right? Where does the sun fall in your chart, right? So it's going to have a sign and a house and possibly some aspects to it. And so taking that sun energy and saying like, okay, how do I want to change how I work with what is considered solar energy inside of myself? And since these energies are a karmic imprint or habitual patterns from past lives and from this life, we can always form new habits. And today, the world that we live in, the energies are so high and things are changing so quickly that there is greater potential now to change than ever before. So we're going to go ahead and walk through the sun and how to work on that energy. And this is going to be a very one of the most sort of like spiritual placements, right? Because the sun is your ego, and a lot of spirituality has to do with how to manage the ego and work with the ego, right? And so we have to look at what does the sun represent in our chart, and then also what does the sun represent for you. So the sun is your creative energy. It's your solar energy, right? It's the part of yourself that's very creative, right? It rules the fifth house of, um, is associated with the fifth house of Leo, right? Which is about creativity and play and children. And so this is the sun. This is the solar principle. It's also the ego, right? Children develop very strong egos. And so the sun is about the ego and learning to work with the ego. It's about pride. It's our will. It's our vitality. These are all things associated with the sun. And so we're going to just walk through um, a couple of techniques on how to shift that sun ego, right? How to shift it into either a different house or a different sign. Um, and when we do that, you know, uh, then we can change. We can change our chart into whatever we want, right? We're gonna later on in the series, we're gonna have a video um, about crafting the perfect natal chart, right? And then once you have the idea of your perfect natal chart and what that looks like and how that expresses in your life, right? Um, then there's going to be some in between steps on how do I go from the chart that I have now to a chart that I would want, right? You could say, like, maybe it's your next incarnation chart, or you could say that that's how you want to move your energies, right? So that's what we're going to be culminating in with this series. Okay, so the sun, we're going through each of the signs and each of the houses. So this is going to be a fairly long video. So the sun in Aries, right, is going to be the first thing that we're going to talk about. We're going to start with Aries. So sun in Aries, and then we're going to talk about the first house. Sun in Aries is a very willful placement, right? This person has a very strong will. They're very, very independent, right? And they're a pioneer of sorts, right? Survival is often a big concern from them. They can often be more self-oriented than other-oriented, and their ego can tend to be wrapped up in selfishness, right? It can tend to be wrapped up in pioneering and ego. And so when you have your ego wrapped up in that, how do you shift it, right? How do you shift that? And so you would have to ask yourself, okay, well, where do I want my ego to be and why, right? Where do I want my ego to be and why? And so this requires you to dissolve your ego, right? if your sun is in Aries, let's say it's in Aries in the first house, we're not going to do every house sign combo because that would take a long time. But let's say your sun is in Aries in the first house, right? You're going to be probably very athletic, and you're going to pride yourself probably on how you look. You're going to put a lot of creative energy into managing your body, maybe in fitness, things like this. And you can continue to do all of those things, right? That's not necessarily a problem. But like, let's say that you've noticed that you don't want to do that anymore. Like, you want to put your creative energy elsewhere. And so, literally, all you have to do is be like, okay, the sun, this is where my creative energy is. This is where I'm putting it, is in my first house in Aries, let's say. I want to put it somewhere else, right? Let's say you decide that you want to make art, right? Well, then you can just go to the fifth house and be like, okay, I'm going to intentionally and willfully, right? I'm going to cultivate my will. And this is why the sun is one of the most important ones to start with, because it is about cultivating the will. And so you can willfully choose to put your energy into creation, right? And start creating art or music, whatever it is that you want to create. And you can have this be from an idea or an experience. And so ultimately, um, the goal with the sun is to completely transcend the ego, and I'm not there yet. So uh, but I can give you tips on how to start dissolving different parts of the ego, because then if you start to dissolve different parts of the ego, then you can respond to whatever is in front of you at that time, right? And then you don't have to trap yourself into, sort of like classical stereotypes. It's like old time women. I don't know how to fix that, right? Like that's a stereotype. But, if that's an egoic thing, right? The ego believes something about themselves because part of their identity is matched with that thing. If you strip those away, whatever presents itself, if you stay open to each moment, then you can respond to that moment appropriately. Right? And this is transcending the ego. You can respond to that moment appropriately because you don't have any fixed ideas about who you are or what makes you special, or any pride about, no, I'm this way. I feel proud that I'm, an American or a Canadian or whatever you identify as. And we live in a time now where we can move beyond that. And this is going to be controversial, right? A lot of astrologers are going to very much disagree with most of what I'm saying. They're going to be like, oh, well, there's going to have to be some influence or progressed sign or any of this. Well, no, we can tap directly into source energy. We can tap directly into the creative potential of the universe and shift things, right? So um, you aren't bound by your astrology. And to even think that you are is to hold that belief that you're bound by your astrology is in itself a type of egoic attachment, right? Like we look at our chart and we start to identify it as me. Well, this is me. I'm like this because of this, and I'm like this because of this, and I'm like this because of this. And we say all of these things, and then we further entrench and solidify um, those samsaric patterns, right? Those karmic patterns, and so you can undo all of this, right? And so these are the steps, right? These are the steps. Okay, and so moving on to so Sun in Aries, right? You can use this to do a lot of self-reflection, right? Aries is the warrior. Aries is very self-focused, and so you can take that Sun and be like, oh, I'm going to magnify this back on myself. And there's another really good reason to start with Aries, because since it is the self, you can use that creative energy on the self to recreate yourself into anything that you want, right? Anything. Um, it just takes time, right? It just takes time, and it might not be necessarily something that you can accomplish in this life. We are here for many lives. Although, side note, we're moving into a time where people are going to live a lot longer, right? We're on that edge. We're on that precipice. And a lot of you watching this video probably are aware of that and know that. But we're moving into a time where you're going to live a lot longer. Okay? But Aries, turn that light of awareness back onto itself, right? Watch, right? And then create something new. Create new ego structures or destroy old ego structures, right? You can see what the ego believes about itself. You all know that you've changed in your life, right? What did you like when you were a child? You probably don't like that now, right? When you were a child, you might have said, I'm going to be this. And now you don't even want to be that. And you're like, why would I have wanted to be that, right? Children know this. They play. They dance around and they see like, oh, I want to try this on. I'm going to try this dress on. They play dress up because they know their minds are flexible. And we can do practices to stay in that flexible state, right? Different yoga practices, different meditations, psychedelics is one thing that people often do to keep the mind flexible and not fixed. And so we can continue to do that throughout our entire life, right? And so you can intentionally be like, you know what? I'm going to make my astrology different than it is. I'm going to put my energy somewhere else. And the sort of more developed your consciousness and the more self-aware that you are, the easier that is to do, right? Because then you are like reprogramming yourself, right? If this is like a program that got put into you at birth, you can just reprogram it. And that's what you're doing. You're reprogramming your astrological chart. And that's awesome, right? That's awesome. So that is the goal, right? And the ego part of it is the most important part, right? That's why we're starting with the sun in this video series, because if you look at it and if you feel pride watching this video, if you feel anger towards me, right? If you feel any of those things towards me, maybe you're like, that guy's an idiot. That's your ego, dude. Right there. Talking to me right now. That guy's dumb. He doesn't know what he's talking about. That guy is arrogant. That's a projection of your ego onto me. I don't know, right? That is your ego. Right there. Right? If you look at me and you see me as like a divine being and you're like full of love and you're like aware, then that's not ego, right? But as soon as you have pride come in that you think you know, and this goes for me too, that you think you know, that's ego, right? Oh, I know better than him. He doesn't know. Astrology's not like that. Ugh, right? All that incredulous shit that we get from, you know, people who've been studying this forever. I've been studying this for 8 years now, and I've been doing readings for 3, and the amount of incredulousness that is out there, not only in the astrological field, but in all fields, right? You look at it in science, you look at it in any of them, and this is all that solar principle. It's all ego, right? It's all the sun. And it's not like that, right? It's not like that. And that's what I want to tell you is that you can change your chart. Right? Now you can't change the literal positions. Well, maybe you can. I don't know how to yet, but you can't change the literal positions of the planets at the time of your birth. That's not possible. At least as far as we know. Yet. Maybe. Maybe there's some multiverse that you can split off into at some point and that actually can happen. I haven't experienced that yet. Could happen. Don't know. One of the problems with induction, right? But anyways, you can change. You can create what I would call a virtual chart of yourself that's a more accurate representation of where you're at now. And some people are like, oh yeah, that's your progress chart. Well, no, you can actually create a virtual chart for yourself that's different than your progress chart. Right? You can create a virtual chart that's different than your progress chart. and strive to become like that virtual chart. And as you do, you will become much more like that virtual chart than your natal chart. Okay? Because you have a will, and that's the sun. You have creative potential. And you have examples in your life of people who relate to the energies differently than you, right? Some people use their solar energy in this way. So you can look around you and you can see that it's possible. And if you know that it's possible to relate to the sun, to that solar creative energy, to your ego in a different way, then you too can decide to relate to it in that way, right? You can start relating to it in that way. And this is beautiful. And you can practice, right? You can even just try it for a day. The whole day you can just pretend, right? And this is solar energy, is pretending, right? This is fifth house stuff, Leo stuff, kids acting, right? Leo, uh, Leonardo. No, but seriously, you can pretend for a day that you're something that you're not, something that you're not, right? For that day, right? You can be like, I'm a construction worker today, and you can go outside on your house and hammer in some nails, and there you go. You just did construction for the day, even though maybe you work in a deli. I don't know what you do, right? But for that day, you can totally change how you use that energy, and that's the principle I want all of you to try. For that day, you know what? Today, I'm a writer. Sit down at your computer and write a story for 3 hours, even if it's totally garbage. It doesn't matter because like you're playing, you're a kid. Right? You're developing a new ego structure, right? One step at a time, every day. Now, if you were to pretend to play being a writer for 3 months straight every day, you're just like, I'm gonna go sit at my computer and write. Then after 3 months, you'd probably be a pretty fucking good writer, right? Like, you'd probably be a pretty good writer. And that's the thing, is you can choose that every day because you have will. You can try right now. All of you have the ability to exercise your will. Let's say you want your sun to be more in Taurus. Okay, well then the next week, let's say we're going to talk about this, if you want your sun to be in those different signs, how to behave, right? Like, let's say you want to be a Taurus sun. Okay, well, spend the next week doing nothing but cooking beautiful meals, right? Every day, cook yourself a beautiful meal. Boom, you just have used your creative energy in a Taurus way, right? Every day for the next week, go outside and work with the earth, garden, boom. You've expressed it in a Taurus way. Every day for the next week, give yourself a foot massage or take a nice bath. Boom. You've now expressed in a Taurus way, right? You've created in a Taurus way. And you all know you can do this. Every single one of you watching this video, except for, the few of you that want to go against this. Why, I have no idea, but that's your path. But every one of you watching this video knows you can choose every day for the next week to express your creative energy in a different way. Let's say you want to express your creative energy in a Gemini way. Well, there we go. We were just talking about writing. Just write some stuff. Boom. There it is, right? Learn every day. We all learn. Every one of us has Gemini. Learn something new every day for the next week. Boom. Creative energy, Gemini way, right? Collect data every day for the next week, right? Take a data point of something, whatever it is that you want to collect data on. Boom. Now you are creating in a Gemini way, right? So your Creative potential is not limited to your sign. It's not limited to the sign. It's not limited to your house. Your sun, you choose where you go with that creative potential, right? You choose. Let's say you want to uh, have your sun express in a Cancer way, right? Let's say that you want to learn to be more nurturing. Well, for the next week, do something every day, even if it's just for 10 minutes. That's more Cancerian, right? Make your home nice, or listen to a friend, right, who has an issue, right? Make yourself available, right? There's all kinds of places where you can make yourself available for somebody to talk to, right? For the next week, pay attention every single day to what you imagine the other person's emotional state is. Be like, I wonder how they're feeling right now. Just think that, right? Every time you talk to somebody, be like, I wonder what they're feeling right now. Develop that awareness, right? Solar energy in a Cancer way. Let's say you want to be Sun in Leo. Okay. Every day for the next week, record a TikTok video of yourself dancing. Right? Boom. Sun in Leo. You're expressing in that way. Or whatever you want to do, right? Look up the Leo energy and be like, okay, how do I express in a Leo way? And then now you understand Leo, right? And as you move through each one of these, right, I kind of recommend you try each sign for a day or for an hour. Try each sign for an hour, right? If you try each sign for an hour, you become more whole as a person because you actually have all of those energies inside of you, inside of that little wheel. And if you try on each energy for an hour, and you identify, you want to be like, you know what, today I'm going to identify as a Leo. And everything I do, I'm going to act like a Leo. Hey guys, how's it going? Come look at me, let's party, right? Let's have fun. I love you, right? Every day. Do that. For every, take a 12-day path and walk through the wheel and try one on each day, and then you'll see like, whoa, I actually am capable of doing all of these signs. And some of them you're going to find like you might struggle a little bit more than others, and that's a great sign, that no pun intended, but that's a great thing, because then those are the areas that you can work on, that you can learn to embody more or relate to more, right? And then you can see the positives of those as you allow yourself to drop into those different vibes of the different signs, right? Say you want to be Virgo for a day. Eat healthy. Set a very, very, very intense routine and stick to it, right? I'm going to do this every day. Routine, 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 right? Have that routine for, a week. Right? Pay attention to the details. Every single little detail matters, right? Everything has to be perfect. Right? Perfection is what Virgos strive for. And so every task that you do that day, make sure it's perfect, right? Is this perfect? And see like, whoa, this is what it's like to be a Virgo, right? Spend a day being like, you know what, today I'm going to go serve at a soup kitchen, right? Virgo is very much of service. And so you choose that day and feel like, wow, I'm a great servant. I'm a great helper, right? This is Virgo. Identify as that for the day, right? Put the Virgo hat on, right? And this is the sun, and so this is playful because we can play, right? And so you're playing at all of the signs, but as you play at it, you create grooves energetically and physically in your mind and your body to become more like the signs that you're playing, right? And this is why method actors, for example, somebody like Heath Ledger, right, after the Joker, went into a dark place because he put it on and he became that, right? We know people can become what they act, right? So when you act as something, you start to become the thing that you're acting as. And so my invitation to you is also to act as the higher expressions of all of these signs when you do this. Okay. All right, let's move on. Libra, right? Let's say you want to be Libra for a day. Beautify everything. Make sure everything's beautiful, right? Pay very attention to justice. If something's unjust, like call it out every day. Boom, right? This is not just, right? Be social justice warrior for a day, right? Or spend every day only thinking about your partner and what's good for them and what's going to make them happy, right? Right, and then you create more harmony, right? Uh, that's Sun in Libra. Try that for a day, right? And then you can be a Libra for a day. Okay. Okay. Sun in Scorpio. Be a detective for a day, right? Look deeply into something, right? Like let's say there's something you don't understand. Be a detective. Dig all the way down. Go super deep with it. Don't stop till you get to the bottom of it, right? Be very intense for the day. Very passionate about everything that you do, right? Maybe engage more in your sexuality for the day, right? Or Google death and start doing a bunch of death meditations and meditate on like what it's like to die, right? Start reading about death, reading about death doulas, right? These are things that, Scorpio, right? Try it for a day and you'll see. Sagittarius, for a week, go on an adventure, go on a journey, go travel. We've all traveled for a week. We've all experienced a long distance travel. We've all been a Sagittarius for a week, right? Get involved with religion, right? Go to church every day for a week, a different church, right? Go sit in a lawyer's office, right? Pretend you're a lawyer for a day. Look up law, legal cases. Spend the whole day looking up legal cases, right? Sun in Capricorn. Pretend you're a CEO for a day or a manager for a day, right? There's so many things Capricorn is associated with, right? You're a father for the day, right? Um, take everything very seriously that day, right? Shut off your emotions. Be like, I'm not going to be emotional today. I'm going to take everything seriously and just get to work, right? Work hard for the day. Put in extra work. Be like, you know what? I'm going to work extra hard today. Take everything extra seriously, right? Aquarius. Be unique. Be crazy. Okay, maybe not crazy, but be unique, right? Dress totally differently. Be outlandish. Get involved in science for the day. Study some science, right? Um, Look up intentional communities, right? Spend the whole day looking, trying to learn something new scientifically, right? Sun in Pisces. Spend the whole day fantasizing. Just go daydream by the river, right? Or spend the whole day meditating, right? Uh, or, writing poetry, something like this, right? Open yourself to the world, you know. Okay, so those are just, sort of like quick. Uh, I didn't go into a lot of detail with any particular sign, but I just wanted to talk about really to get you to understand what can you identify with each day. And so as you start to think and contemplate like, what do I want to identify as? Where do I want my identity to be? What do I want to be proud of? How do I want to express creatively, right? How do I want to express creatively? And if you see that that's maybe different than where the sun is in your chart, well, then just act that the sun is somewhere else. until it effectively is, right? And that's the whole point. And that's transmutational astrology in a nutshell. And that's the sun in a nutshell. Okay. If you have any comments, please reply in the video. Thanks so much for listening. Stay tuned because over the next few weeks or the next month or two, we're going to go through every single planetary placement and just talk a little bit about what it is and how to shift it. And so in this video, we just talked about how to shift your ego, right? Becoming aware and noticing when is something ego. Anything after I am or I believe or I think, anything after that sort of like I statement is your ego. And so unpacking that and creating a new ego structure, right? Creating a new ego structure is all about the sun, right? Expression, creativity, and then just as you step away from those ego structures, then you can just allow raw creativity to flow through you in every moment, wherever you are, in whatever circumstances you find yourself. And then allow that solar energy to be like, it can express in all 12 houses, depending on where you are. Um, and that's it today for the sun. But over the next, month or so, we're going to cover each planet and talk about what each of those represent and how to work on transmuting that. All right, so if you have any comments or questions or any tips on how to work with your ego energy, work with your creative energy, ways that you found have worked for you to change them, to change how you express in the world, that creative self-expression, please leave them in the comments section below. And I will see you all in the next video.